Hello and welcome to the latest edition of EFT Changes Lives. And I am Mary Jane Sharratt. I'm an EFT practitioner and trainer and a trainer of trainers. And I've been using EFT since about 2014. And I have seen how it's changed my life and the life of many of the people that I've worked with. And in this series of videos, I'm talking to people who say that EFT has changed their lives too. Today, we are fortunate enough to be joined by Jess Wilkins-Cooke, who is an advanced EFT practitioner and an EFT trainer. Hello, Jess. Great to see you.
Hello, lovely to see you.
So, Jess, can you tell us, first of all, a little bit about how you found EFT, what brought you to it, and your journey with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I came to EFT as a client initially. I had been probably off the back of something like a 10-year therapy journey. So I tried all sorts of different things and I had talked all my issues to death. So I could tell you about them from inside out and upside down, but I wasn't able to actually change them. And I came to EFT through another modality, which is in the same family called EMDR.
Mhm.
And through EMDR, I found EFT, and it has been the technique for me ever since. So I remember I came on your training actually, Mary Jane. It was my first level one, my first experience of EFT. I came with a friend because by absolute chance, we'd both found you at the same time. And I remember we did the first exercise and we just looked at each other and thought, wow, because
Fantastic.
it was so immediate.
Mhm.
So I then used it a lot myself and eventually trained as a practitioner and then a trainer.
And it's so interesting what you say about talking therapy because for sure it has its place, for people to have a safe space to speak about things that have been going on, that have happened in their lives, that are going on currently, has so much value. But I've also trained a good number of counselors, psychotherapists, and they always say to me, wow, more shifted in that 20-minute practice session than I would have probably achieved in 3 weeks with someone. So I think people are often surprised by how quickly EFT can work because I think it's somatic. We're feeling stuff in the body, aren't we? We're actually tuning into what's that body feeling of that emotion rather than just talking about it.
That was definitely my experience. And I think it takes away that kind of conflict because for me, it was anxiety. And
Mm.
so I would have trouble with something that was really felt like it should be small and simple, like maybe going into a room full of people I didn't know, or driving, or trying something new. So
Mhm.
my conscious brain would go, my conscious mind would go, well, come on, Jess, let's get it together. What's going on? And my body was reacting as if I was being chased by a dangerous animal. I was really shaking. And we know in that state, you're not thinking clearly. So all I was doing is going round in circles until the thing just was too hard to even bother to try to do. So
Mhm.
EFT just got straight underneath that, brought safety back to my body and also harmony with, I didn't have to fight with myself. It wasn't a battle. It was about bringing the part of me that didn't feel safe back in. It was very gentle, and yeah, very, very powerful.
Yeah. And gentle is exactly what I believe as well about EFT. It's not always, it depends in whose hands it's being used, but primarily it is gentle and most people find it to be that way. And I think that's fantastic. I just love that about EFT. So having from those beginnings, Jess, you're now a trainer and a practitioner. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the kind of people you're working with, whether you've got a specialism?
Yeah, so I completely fell in love with EFT and I haven't stopped using it since. So I work with all kinds of different issues. As we know, EFT can work with pretty much anything that you find to be an emotional challenge. I
Mhm.
do work particularly or have specialized particularly with parents and adoptive parents. I'm an adoptive mum myself.
Mhm.
So that comes with its own kind of particular challenges. And then where it comes to parenting, so much of what we experience as parents has roots in so much of what we experience as children. So And often we don't know that until our children are here. So that can be a bit of a shock, and it can cause us to kind of see things in ourselves that we don't recognize or not quite know where to go from here. So
Mhm.
EFT is a really great tool to be able to start working that back. There's no shame and no judgment in EFT. I think that's one of the first things I love about it, and it's really empowering. So not only can you do that deeper, more focus work in session and start understanding where that behavior's come from, maybe where that language has come from that you're suddenly using that you another part of you doesn't agree with,
Mhm.
you can actually take EFT away and just use it in the moment when you're overwhelmed, or everybody in the house is doing your head in, and you need something to just support you to come down a little bit again from that total overwhelm where there's no clarity. So you've got something practical to do. So parents, and then I do find that lots of people, there's something in there, isn't it? In often people come to you for issues that you've experienced yourself. So I do
Oh,
find lots of people come with anxiety, and
ah,
that's really
interesting.
lovely to be able to work with and support.
Yeah, 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 and to share a bit about how it's helped you as well.
Absolutely, yeah, because I think the main thing, one of the values of my business is I really believe, and I didn't believe actually until I found EFT. I hoped, but I didn't really believe that change is always possible with the right tools. You
Yeah,
just need to find the right thing for you, and I'm definitely proof of that.
yeah, fantastic. Is there anything that you've noticed from your work using EFT, how that's changed your role as a parent?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, I think I always say to people, I'm a practitioner and a trainer, but I still go to a practitioner when
You're
I
still a
need
human being with all the day-to-day
to.
stuff. Yeah, of course.
EFT as a self-help tool is amazing, but there are places where we need guidance to be able to work through. So I experienced as a parent, I had a really tricky upbringing, like a lot of us. And when my daughter came home, so my second child came home, I noticed this kind of, it was like an extra irritation or an extra some kind of challenging emotions. And I mean, pre EFT, I probably just would have beat myself up about it, um, and found all the things that I was doing wrong, and then got stuck in that cycle and found it really overwhelming. But because I know what I know I needed to seek support. And one of the things about EFT, the reason why it's so liberating is because we don't think or analyze our way out of situations. So I found that the cause of that was in my own childhood and my relationship with my mum, which, although in hindsight, it seems fairly obvious, actually at that time, it wasn't at all. And it came as a big shock to me. But I remember it was yourself, Mary Jane, who did those amazing sessions for me. And I remember the day of that last session, I had this kind of realization that I was I had basically carried a feeling with me, and that now that I was dormant because I didn't have a daughter until then.
Yeah.
And then it came out. But
Mm.
then when we could understand the root of it, I remember my daughter came home from nursery that day, and I really had this sensation of it was like there was a wall, there had been a wall between us, and it had come down.
Wow.
And I didn't, and it never came back. I mean, that was like maybe 2 years ago.
Mm.
So yeah, I couldn't have done that with my thinking mind, or even just talking to a friend. I also think talking is so powerful and so needed. But if you can talk around something, but you don't feel safety in the body, or you're carrying something that you don't know about,
Mm.
you can't even talk about it because you don't know it's there. So yeah, EFT was a game changer for me as a parent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe we should talk a little more about this whole idea of the difference between talking therapy and how EFT works. Do you want to talk about that? About this kind of embodiment and tuning into the body feelings, which you alluded to before when you were talking about your anxiety. Do you want to just talk a little bit about, maybe how EFT is helping things shift that talking therapy can't quite reach?
Yeah, so I always, again, it's not to devalue anything else, but I always say if you're doing DIY, you don't always use a hammer, do you? If you need to do something a little bit more intricate,
Mm.
then you're going to use a different tool. And if you use a hammer, you can just end up doing damage. And I do think sometimes talking can be so powerful in reframing, in having insights. But if, as was my experience at the end of what was a useful path of talking therapy, if you can't seem to shift that in the body, but you keep talking about it because you know it's still there, you're actually kind of just ingraining again and again, kind of going through that same pathway, almost like reinforcing a habit of that difficult emotion, and that you're stuck in a loop. And
Yeah.
then the more you kind of, you just say this loop's here, this loop's here, this loop's here, but don't break it, it becomes actually stronger. So
Mm.
EFT is like, I think of it a bit like a band. So if you've got like the mind, body, and emotions playing music, you want to hear them all, but at different
Mhm.
times you want one to be in the front. And so I always say when we do EFT, I absolutely welcome skepticism as well, because I think no one was a bigger skeptic than I was. So the mind might have something to say about it, or the mind might have a story that it keeps telling. And the mind does a beautiful job. It wants you to go with it on this story and on this next tangent and on this next tangent. So we allow the mind to do what it's doing, but we just bring the body into the fore. So if you say something like I did, well, you know, I've got this issue with my daughter. I'm just feeling really overwhelmed, really irritated. I could talk to you about that for days,
Yeah.
but it's probably just going to make me more irritated. But actually, what I was feeling in my body was a sensation, because wherever there's a thought or an emotion, there's a sensation. It's just that we're not taught to notice it. And
Yeah.
often that's really surprising for people when you first say, okay, but how does that feel in your body? And they notice that it's there,
Mm.
and that they might be able to identify it really quite
Yeah.
easily, or quite have a really detailed description of what that feeling is and where it is. And then we just follow that, and we use tap in to allow the body to move and shift the way it knows how to do. And we pretty much get out of the way, and allow the body to move the emotion through us. And
Yeah.
through that, we get really amazing insights and perhaps understandings of where these things came from in the first place. It's a little bit like setting a sat nav. If you want to know where you're going, if you want to say, I want to go here, so I wanted to feel calm and peaceful and loving in my relationship with my daughter, I have to know where I am.
Mm.
So, and not just in here, but in here in my body, because my body ultimately kind of runs the show. Because yes, I've got a mind that does a great job, but actually I'm an animal, we're all animals, and survival comes first. And often what's stored in the body is about safety, and
Yeah.
that's going to override everything else. So we need to lean in, and we can allow the body really to restore balance back to itself.
Yeah, that's such a lovely description. I like the idea of the band as well, you know, bringing different ones to the front of the stage at different times. And you know, you're absolutely right. When we, you know, hear bad news, get a shocking phone call, anything like that, we feel it in the body before we process it in the mind. So what we're doing, aren't we, largely with EFT, we're going back to those moments where we felt something in the body before we'd even made a cognitive, you know, calculation about what was happening. And sometimes that's, you know, a nanosecond, but we always get the body feeling first. And unraveling that is so powerful, isn't it?
And as you say, it's, as you always say, it's about what it we made it mean.
Yeah.
So in that moment, it's something wasn't safe. And then how did we process that? What did we make it mean about ourselves and the world that we've now logged but
Yeah.
don't know is there? So
Yes.
we have our beliefs, and we have to act from them. And often they're like the foundations of a house. We can't see them. We can see the walls and windows, but we can't see actually what we're standing on. So EFT is kind of that communication to be
Mm,
able to go back and go, well, what did this really mean for me? And
mm.
how does it affect me now? But without getting caught in the story.
Yeah. And is it useful for me anymore?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right, because our beliefs are our truths, really. And everybody is walking around with ton of beliefs that they just think is true. But the reality is other people have completely different set of beliefs and have a different truth. And I always, in the training, we look at a short video by Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I really admire, and he's done a lot of work about beliefs. But he says, if you want to know what your beliefs are, look at the patterns in your life that keep recurring, because your life is basically a reflection of your belief system. So if your life is miserable and not happy, then that's because there's some beliefs holding you back there. And if your life is amazing and wonderful, that's because those are the beliefs you're holding. But you can change them. You can change your beliefs and therefore your life as well. So yeah. That's yeah, such a great analogy and such a great description there, Jess. But I really like that idea of, yes, let's get into the body first and let's feel what the body wants to say. Because often it's shouting at us, isn't it? Really loudly, especially when we have physical health issues or pain as well. Fantastic. So Jess, you're also a trainer and you're training EFT to tell us a bit about that. How many people, what sort of things are you doing? How's that structured?
Yeah, I absolutely love training. I train levels 1, 2, and 3. So EFT foundation, so using EFT really as a self-help tool and for the people around you. So the level 1 is kind of a background really on what EFT is. There's a little bit about what is happening in the body when we're doing EFT, and then plenty of practice because EFT is an experience, isn't it? Like the first time I tried it, I can talk about it and I had enough of an idea to book on, but I really had no idea what I was going to be able to do.
Yeah.
And the idea with level 1 is that you can progress if you want to develop your knowledge, but actually it might be all that you ever want to do, and you can use EFT to support yourself. And then practitioner and advanced practitioner training. So I train online and in person in Chester, and small groups, really maximum of kind of 6 or 8, so that there's that room to really explore and have that individual attention. And in fact, it's funny because I mean, there's a very long list of the way that EFT has changed my life, but for the kind of confidence that I once had, being a teacher of anything would have been a total impossibility. So I think, yeah, it's wonderful when your work is all about self-regulation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're always expanding your comfort zone as well.
Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. So Jess, can you tell us a little bit about how people can find you, and where you're based and how you're working with clients, if parents in particular are looking for a practitioner to work with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Tap Into Transformation. You'll find me at tapintotransformation.co.uk, and on Instagram as well, Facebook and LinkedIn. And I also am a podcast host. So my podcast is called Not a Perfect Parent, The Extraordinary Wisdom of Ordinary Parents. And there's a couple of series that you will find on the website and online, and especially have a look at it if you are feeling, as we all sometimes do, that we're not quite getting it right, or we just want that kind of friendly, non-judgmental place where we know that none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
And there's some amazing stories from parents on there. So I run sessions 1-to-1 online and here in Chester. I have a free monthly online tap-in circle, and I run an in-person tap-in circle in Chester as well.
Lovely.
And I run regular training throughout the year. And if anybody just wants to have a chat about EFT, I'm always up for it because it is one of my absolute passions.
Yeah, great. I was talking to someone yesterday about us being EFT geeks, and I was like, I
Yes.
think I am. I never thought I was a geek of anything, but I think. So if you wanted to discover a bit more about EFT, you can join Jess's tapping circle. And I often say, imagine trying to describe what chocolate tastes like to someone who's never tried it. You need to come and do it. You just need to join. So Jess's tapping circle might be a really great intro to that as well. Jess, one last question. Where would you like to see your journey with EFT going in the future, EFT in the wider world going in the future? What are your hopes and dreams for it?
For me, I I wish, I mean, I'm also a mindfulness teacher and I wish this for mindfulness as well, but these tools that we can access so simply that are available to all of us, and really all of us, you can, if you're not able to tap, you can imagine yourself tapping and it can have a similar effect. Then I would just love to see it in schools. I would love to see us prioritizing learning this kind of self-regulation so that you're not like me and kind of fumbling, trying to find it a bit later on.
Yeah.
So I would love to see it become wider and wider and more people to know how to use it. You'll see me tapping everywhere I am in the supermarket, on the bus. I want to see everybody doing that because it's such an amazing tool and all you need is yourself.
Fantastic. Jess, thank you so much for joining us today. And it's been amazing hearing about your experience with EFT and how it's changed your life and the lives of people you've worked with. So please do join us again for another episode of EFT Changes Lives. Thank you so much for watching.